I think one of his
I
fundamental points
asked
was
him, like, what,
that's not useful.
How do you? So how often do you think privilege politics or issues of cultural appropriation help you organize workers? And he was like, I only encounter it when someone is fresh out of college and I have to break them of it. And he's like, so it's really kind of a bother for me.
He brought up this experience that I think a lot of people of color actually have who are participate in political activism that I've certainly had, which is that you're at a meeting and someone gets up and says, guys, everyone here is white and there's no people of color here. And I think that's a real problem for our movement. And like, I'm always sitting there as a person of color thinking, get the fuck out of here. Because, I mean, it's always a white person making this statement, you know? Anyway, I mean, it's basically a practice of guilt. And guilt is a personal practice. It's not a political practice.
I think it's not just guilt either. It's about representing like how woke you are. And in some ways it's a little accusatory. It's like, I'm not one of those men. I'm not one of those white people. I'm better than them. And it reads to me a lot of times like jockeying for an advantage. And I think, you know, going back to like the terrorist example, like what people tend to do, or the police example, is to correct things by being more punitive rather than doing sort of the work of liberation, not to be too grandiose, because one, it's more fun to be punitive, and two, it's just way easier. Rather than
that was what I was going to say. How fucking easy it is. Like calling something cultural appropriation takes absolutely no brain power, risks nothing of you, and just calls attention to you as somebody who has the brilliance to point out cultural appropriation.
Yeah,
it just builds your personal brand.
I don't know if this is a thing that like white activists do for like the performance before POC or whatever, but like I know there's definitely something that like feminists call like performative allyship, but I just call like cruising for poon. And it's just like so it's just so clear when they're like, you know, that guy he has real problems with women. I'm like, first of all, why the fuck are you talking to me about this? Like, why did you pull me aside to have this conversation with me? And it can be very transparent, I think, when people are sort of trying to get an advantage of their wokeness.
But like for, you know, particularly, you know, college students or people fresh out of college, like, you know, we've made fun of it on this show a lot, but like the concept of, you know, wokeness or like how it's deployed, you know, on social media and then also in people's like personal lives. I mean, the instinct isn't terrible, right? Like, but where does it go wrong? And like, I guess what would be like the practical advice you would give to someone who's like, you know, I have someone who they're a little too proud of how woke they are.
Well, you can kind of tell
politics
the difference,
have like,
right?
you know, gone in a less productive way down to sort of just, let's be honest, bullshit.
This was a question that someone sent me at my at your sorry ass at my column.
Yeah,
and I was, you know, one of the things is like, well, do you think they're doing it to be a dick, or do you think they're doing it because they think they're supposed to be doing it because there's like a distinct difference between those kind of woke people? And I think honestly, and maybe this is just my optimism, but the majority of like, you know, people that we kind of laugh at for being like silly woke, you know, they really are trying their best. I think most of them aren't like horrible Twitter personalities like trying to get a book deal.
Well, it's just people don't come up with any sort of class consciousness or material understanding of the world. And like I've seen so many people complaining about cultural appropriation in these sort of broad terms. And if you like drill down, what they're really mad about is the process of cultural commodification. Like that's what they're actually upset by, but they don't know what that is. They don't know that commodification is a process. They don't have the language for it. They do have the language to point out cultural appropriation because it's in the air.
That's because Marxism has been purged from the universities, but I digress.
Well, I mean, the rule of thumb, I think, is just find where the injustice is. Locate what someone is being deprived of. Look at what someone is being prohibited of doing rather than looking at what someone is doing out of enjoyment or out of, you know, just a natural inclination, you know?
Well, the great thing about art and culture is that it's like not finite. Like one, you know, like she's not good, but Iggy Azalea does not occur at the deficit of another rapper. Like it's literally, she's not creating less space. She's just sucking very loudly and in public.
Right.
Well, that's what I don't get when people, the assumption there of like, oh, Iggy Azalea is taking someone's place. But she sucks, which means the people who are listening to her have shitty taste. So are you saying that,
Also, there's
that
an
kind of
entire-
assumes that the person who would fill their spot would suck too, regardless?
Yeah, there's an entire
Whoa.
music industry built around creating these human beings in a lab somewhere, running them through like a creepy set of focus groups, and scientifically creating pop stars. It doesn't have anything to do with.
There's five middle-aged Scandinavian guys write every one of these songs.
Oh yeah,
The ones, all the songs that are examples of awful cultural appropriation, and all of the amazing liberatory anthems that make Beyonce the new Sojourner Truth are written by the same cabal
same
of middle-aged
Swedes.
Swedes.
It's those same fucking Swedes.
Sorry, I was dumping out. But anyway, just want to circle back to the Iggy Azalea discussion. Who remembers when Azalea Banks was like, "Igloo Australia, get your white ass out of here," and then
Her insults are like tanky insults.
she sounded like Molly. She was like, "These petty bouge
What are you
fash."
talking about? Who doesn't love the well-known and famous igloos of Australia?
Yeah, but anyway, so it was great, and all the woke people were like, "Yes, drag her." All the people who were like, I both my parents are Reinhard Heydrich, actually, and Cecil Rhodes, like the whitest people alive who care about this shit for some reason. And then, like, the next day, Azalea Banks was like, so Bill Cosby's innocent because it's impossible to rape a white woman. Mexican
said
people
horrible
are
things about
trash.
Mexicans, yeah.
Jacob, he invented Mexican people as a joke to make the worst people. And just want to clarify again that Bill Cosby is innocent. But even if he did do those things, they're not bad. And then all the woke people were like, "Oh man, I'm so conflicted here."
Identity politics that a lot of liberals try to defend is, on the policy side and on the platform side, completely vacuous. I mean,
Yeah.
for one thing, you have the fact that they're arguing, we don't want to abandon these people for some grubby white working class. Meanwhile, the Clinton campaign, which is trying to defend itself in a rearguard action as having been sort of the champions of identities, saw a decline in turnout and in percentage of the vote.
I mean, yeah, that's the crazy fucking thing, is that we have this false dichotomy that it's like, you have the Bernie bros who are just the class over everything, and then the Clinton people, which are supposed to be the most stalwart defenders of identity politics. But if you look at what they actually prescribed, it's like, wait, what? They seem to think that identity politics is like tweeting about Beyonce or tweeting gifs of black women or
Right.
having a concert where fucking Katy Perry's there. There's no actual practice of identity politics at all. It's just all cultural signifiers.
Yeah,
and I
well,
think
the
that
Clinton record on programs that have disproportionately benefited poor people, which are, disproportionately people of color, disproportionately black, and depending on your area, Hispanic people. I mean, it is absolutely terrible. If they were good on identity politics, they would have had at least some nod to decarceration. Something,
Well,
at least some nod to
anyone
welfare.
Did anyone see the Jennifer Palmieri thing?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago?
People don't want a $15 minimum wage. It's all about identity. I think it was something like that. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that she didn't elaborate. She did not say it's about X, Y, or Z. She just said identity as just like a placeholder.
That covers it.
Forget about these material concerns. Identity as like just a thing to basically, I mean, it couldn't have been more clear, to ward off material claims.
Right.
But not actually propose anything at all.
Boy, they
to
just
oppose
love to
them.
lose.
In a way, I wonder if liberals would be satisfied if, like, the demographic of poor people was just racially evenly distributed at the
they
same
would
rate as the general population.
They would
They'd
certainly
like,
be happy if the
"Poverty's fine."
demographic of rich people were evenly
Yeah, right.
distributed. As
right.
long
But
as
there's a mirror image to that too,
Yeah,
right?
they would love that.
Let's diversify the poor.
yeah, well,
That's
I
the
mean, you see this all the
Democratic
time.
Party
How come there
platform.
aren't more women billionaires? Who gives a shit? How come there are billionaires?
Yeah,
Right.
How come there are billionaires? That's a much better question.